Hey, everybody, this is Sean Pitcher. We are on Roots Podcast. Today, I'm very fortunate to have on Malcolm Majesky.
That's right.
Okay. He is the head strength and conditioning coach at Ashland University. It is a Division II university in the state of Ohio. I have a little bit of experience of knowing about Ashland because I was also at one time at a Division II university at Pittsburgh State. They commonly came down pretty frequently to a lot of our track and field meets pretty often. So that's where I'm kind of familiar with them. And then I was also in Columbus, Ohio for a short period of time. And was closer near to that area. But Malcolm, appreciate you coming on for us today. Thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be on here. It's a pleasure, and I've been following you, so I'm glad to see the podcast up and running and the episodes that you've done so far. So it's awesome. Thank you.
Took a little bit of time. This has kind of been in the works from like 2018, but I finally buckled down and got it done.
Good, awesome.
So kind of give us, dig into who you are as a person. Who is Malcolm?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. It's a tough one to start off with. I'm a husband and a father. I've been married to my wife for almost 10 years now. This December will be our 10-year anniversary. I have 3 kids, 3 daughters, so I'm a girl dad. They're phenomenal. My oldest is 6, my middle is 4, and our youngest is 9 months, almost 9 months. I start to lose track after a little while there, but yeah, I'm from an hour north of here. I guess me and getting into the field, I loved sports in high school and middle school, and when I was young, but I was super skinny. I loved what I did, or I loved competing, but I was maybe a step behind or maybe a little weaker than people I was going against. So I started to lift weights in my basement and had an old bench with a little bar with the clay plates that you would slide on the end, and that were cracked, the plastic ones with the plastic coating. But then my parents noticed that I started to get a little more serious about it, and so they hooked up with a coach, or they had me hook up with a coach by the name of Mark Valeni, and he runs the Refined Savage podcast. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. But he has an awesome gym in Vermillion, Ohio, Blind Dog Fitness, or Blind Dog Gym. And so he just exposed me to so many different modalities of training and helped me to reach a level of success that I didn't think, or I didn't know I could reach, and he got me into track and field. He kept, bugging me about becoming a thrower because that's what he was passionate about. So I finally gave in and went out for track and had some success with it. And so he said, if this is something that you would like to continue with, then you need to go to Ashland University and be coached by Judd Logan. So I visited a number of colleges, Ashland being one of them, and just fell in love with the campus, fell in love with Judd, I guess, what am I trying to say here? The program that he established, the standard that he had established. So I came to Ashland and became a thrower. And Judd, as passionate as he was about throwing and about track and field, he was equally as passionate about strength and conditioning. So again, just by learning from him and all the different training modalities that we used, I would constantly ask him questions and want to know a little bit more. And so he just, I don't know, he influenced me in so many different ways. And he's, probably the biggest reason why I decided to do what I am doing. He hooked me up with an internship with the Cleveland Browns in 2008. And that's when I really knew I wanted to do strength and conditioning. So, that's pretty much who I am.
I know it's a pretty wide question. You can go in 1,000 different angles with it.
Exactly. Yeah, I know. I could talk a lot more about, the people that have influenced me, but that's just a short, I don't know, footnotes version, I guess.
And I'm sure several of those people will definitely pop up kind of as we keep continuing with this. I mean, the
Sure,
one that
sure.
I could definitely touch on, like, even myself at a young age, my father got me into the gym when I was 12 years old.
Yep.
He was one of the only people in his family that played sports. He had four other siblings, but he was the one, basketball, baseball, football, like trying to get basically into everything that he possibly could. And
Sure.
even some of the stories my uncle told me, he's like, oh, your father used to like bench 405, and he was a super strong guy. And
Wow.
so like right from the start, like he knew how important like being in the weight room is and how it was going to essentially directly translate over to performance. Now, do I know what I was doing at the time? Probably not.
Yeah.
But I think it's always great when we have those mentors from a young age, especially when we start getting into into sports, to try to start getting those movements patterns down and just doing the basics to try to start getting you stronger so you can be at least somewhat or probably a lot better prepared than probably most athletes are at that age.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's funny you said, like, not exactly sure you knew what you were doing at the time. Like when I had that weight set in my parents' basement, like it was a bench press, had a leg extension on the end. So it was like back and forth between leg extensions and benching. And the number of times I got trapped under a bar in my basement is too many. So it's a miracle that I'm even sitting here talking with you, but it's just one of those experiences.
Yeah, it's always funny because you hear a lot of power lifters or strength coaches, they're like, when you're young, you might as well just start kind of almost with a bodybuilding type
Mhm.
training session, like get some volume in, get a lot of reps in. And, that's essentially what my dad put me in that position. He's like, all right, Monday, you're going to do bench. Tuesday, you're going to do legs. This day, you're going to do this. And it's like, and at the time, like, I didn't know how to periodize or do anything of that nature.
Sure.
So it's just like, all right, dad taught me 8 exercises. So let's just do all these 8 exercises every single time I go into the gym. And
Yeah.
if the weight keeps going up and I get stronger, then I guess I'm doing the right thing.
It's
But
working. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, we all know in that age, the adolescent teenage, I mean, you're pretty much at a baseline of nothing. So
Yes.
anything that you're going to do is going to make a huge benefit. Or, I mean, I've come across, I'm sure you can speak on this as well. I mean, a lot of athletes that we get that come in that we have to train, right, have never even touched a weight before. So it's
Yep.
like you could have a baseline at our case, 12 to 14 years old, or you have someone who's never lifted and now they're coming in at 17, 18 years old into the gym.
Yeah.
And they may see huge jumps compared to other people in their groups.
Yeah. That's like I was at so before I came back to Ashland, I was down in Columbus myself. I was with the Wexner Medical Center down there. And so I was contracted to Ohio Dominican and also a high school in the area, Olentangy Orange. And I learned more from coaching at the high school level than I think I've learned anywhere else that I've been, just because the level of athlete that you get coming into the weight room. So it's exactly what you just said. It's training age and some people never stepping into a weight room before. So like we had athletes that were coming in that, we had kids getting Division I offers, scholarship offers, and then we had kids that were getting to their senior year who were just starting to sniff the field on the JV team. You know what I mean? So just very different levels of athlete. But you have to be able to coach all of them, so it was definitely tough at the time, but I'm very thankful for that experience because of that. It helped me, or it's helped me grow so much and helped me to be able to, help others that come into my weight room now.
And it's so funny that you worked at Wexner. I'm sure, are you aware of Nationwide Children's Hospital?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So my first position working with athletes was with them. They opened
Okay.
they had a sports medicine basically area established with athletic training, but shout out to Jeff Side. I don't know if you're aware of
Oh
him
yeah.
or not,
Yeah.
but I was one of
New
his.
Albany.
Yes, New
Yeah.
Albany, and I mean, since I left, I was one of his first hires, underneath
Okay.
him, and then he's really blown that program up. I think he has, 4 to 6 strength coaches under him now, and they're contracted out to a whole bunch of different schools in the area, and
Yeah.
it's great to see because like that's the stuff that we were talking about at the very ground level when I first got there, like all these ambitions and ideas and things we we're going to do to expand it. So it's great to see him and his staff that he's kind of put together be able to reach out to those different levels.
Oh
Because
yeah.
again, I think the more coaches we get into the high school level, the more prepared they're going to be, and not just strong, fast and perform well, but teach them a lot of the different disciplines, routines, schedule, and things that are going to be necessary that they're going to have to face at that next collegiate level they go to.
Yep, exactly. That's like we just finished up our summer block of training with football. So we had 6 weeks and 2 days of voluntary workouts, and the freshmen, it seems like every year the freshmen that come in for those workouts are better prepared every time. Their Olympic lifting technique is getting so much better. Their squat depth is where it needs to be. So it's like they're coming from programs that are really taking it seriously, and it's always fun to see. But it's like you said, it's like I wish that more people were kind of jumping on board with that, because I know, that's a handful of kids that I've seen. It's a very small percentage of the team or of the incoming class. And those others that come in are probably not going to be as well prepared. But it is nice to see. It's nice to see that, more people are taking it seriously, and, kids are understanding those aspects of, becoming part of a collegiate program.
And it just helps you guys, right? Like there's things now, then hopefully, if only 10-20% of the guys have to catch up, rather than 50 to 70% of the guys I have to start from square one.
Exactly.
You can progress in your movements a little bit more, or like you can do a little bit more higher level education or teaching or implementation of something that maybe you weren't going to be able to do before, because you just have to start at block zero or ground zero or whatever that essentially is, because you don't know essentially what you're going to get from year to year.
Yep, exactly.
And I definitely see a lot of hospitals are taking that route, where they're adding sports medicine departments and, getting more, the big one is getting more athletic trainers out and available, during games, during practices. And even my own high school back at home, like we have a big hospital there, and they've pushed out strength coaches everywhere. Like that, we have a strength coach from that hospital that's at my former high school now, and the weight room's brand new. So he's in there coaching all the athletes up. I mean, to think about how that weight room looked, how we used to train, and you're going in there, and everyone's trying to max out on bench, and it's like now you actually have like all brand new equipment, a turf field, and then somebody in there that actually knows what they're doing. It's just like it's like a 360. It's crazy.
It's insane. Like I see some of these pictures on Twitter or Instagram of some of these high school weight rooms, and I'm like, good Lord, like this is like D1 Power 5 type stuff that you're seeing. And but it's great. I kind of going off of what you said, the guy that was in charge of the weight room at my high school, everybody listened to him because he benched every day, and he always had at least 315 on the bar. So he obviously knew more than anybody else. But now we have it's actually another one of Judd's former throwers who's the strength coach up there now, and he's doing a great job. So it's nice to see like schools taking it more seriously and people branching out from big programs and stuff. So it's awesome.
Yeah, we're not only seeing that in strength conditioning, but like the nutrition side. Like I'm starting to see that trickle down effect now. Like
Great.
We have a dietitian that I've connected with here that's at an NAI school that has a fueling station.
Wow.
Right. Yeah. It's like, who would have thought an NAI school has a fueling station in a dietitian? Yep. Like that's almost crazy to think about. But I mean, schools are starting to see, again, it's like an arms race, right? Like, how are you going to be able to recruit kids to your school? And what's one or two things that you can offer that the other schools don't? Because all the top schools obviously have everything, right? They have the red carpet, the fueling stations, get whatever you want any time of the day. But, I'm from a D3 school, you're at D2 school. I'm sure some of the experiences you've had, like, we don't have these amenities, but having a little piece or somebody come in once in a while makes a huge difference.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. Yeah. That's one big thing that we use as a recruiting tool here is our dietetics department, and the head of that department, Dr. Venata. I don't know if you've ever met him or know who he is. But he is a huge asset for us in athletics in general. His son played baseball here. So he just understands the inner workings of an athletic program, and he does one-on-one consultations with our athletes. He'll come in and do group talks with our athletes and our teams. And he's done some amazing things with the people that, really take it seriously. So, there's, like you said, not a lot of D2 schools that have that, available for them. So for us, we used it, and we tell kids like, look, There's not another D2 school in our conference right now, I think, that has something like that. So yeah, any little thing to kind of put us ahead of the competition is huge.
Yeah, that like at Pitt State when I first got there, like I had like a dual role. Like I was a dietitian, but then I also was a GA strength and conditioning coach. So it's like I got to pretty much set up their first kind of small fueling station that we had kind of a collective or collaborative agreement with their local hospital. So they gave us a certain amount of money I could spend, monthly, weekly. But I mean, that fueling station, as soon as I put the food out, it was gone just as fast as I put it out, But it was a huge benefit because at least, and I'm sure you see as a kids too, like an athlete schedule is so busy.
Oh yeah.
Right? And a lot of times food isn't always at the forefront of what they're thinking about. And I mean, I've had kids that are like, oh, I've gone all day and I got to come in and lift and then I go to practice, but I ate nothing all day. Like, can I eat a Chewy bar? And you're like, yes, eat a Chewy bar. I don't know if it's going to get you through the next 3 to 4 hours of exercise. Like, you're going to be exhausted and you're putting yourself at a high risk for getting hurt.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And everybody wants to come in and they want to just keep on, they just want go all the time. And they don't understand that aspect of it, of, fueling your body properly and stuff. And like you said, that we have kids that come in for an afternoon workout and they haven't eaten all day and they've been going to class and it's like, dude, your workout's going to be awful, and so just little by little trying to educate them as much as we can about the benefits of it, and just helping to, I don't know, not only helping with their workout, but it just translates over to the field. Just you keep on stacking on those, good eating habits, good sleeping habits, come into the weight room with them, if they're disciplined, and then eventually transfer to the field.
Yeah. And it's just, sometimes these guys just don't know.
Yep.
Guys and gals, they don't know. And it's not
Exactly.
their fault. Maybe their parents were never taught that when they were growing up and they're teaching them kind of just whatever they know. So it's like, it's those little moments. Like if I'm over at that fueling station at that time and like someone says something like that, like, well, that's the next 1 or 2 minutes, whatever I'm going to say is probably going to be pretty important.
Yeah.
Hopefully they take it and hopefully they take that nugget and then they see a difference from it. So then they buy in more to come back for more information. And that's all you can really hope for. I mean, at the end of the day, the athlete has to make the choice that they want to change and get better. And a lot of time, and this is something I took from, I had a conversation with my brother last weekend, who's a social worker.
Okay.
And, he was pretty much telling me, he goes, most people know they have to do it, or most people know basic information on what needs to be done.
Sure.
But a lot of times it's just pushing them in that direction or giving them a friendly reminder and then getting them to see, hopefully, that association to get them over that obstacle or that hump, which in some cases for some people, it's for staff too, it could be in that level for years. Sure, at times until someone comes along and just gives them that shove.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. And it's a struggle for sure.
Could you go into talking a little bit more about like the Division II level, right? So, one of the things I talked about before we first came on here is just, everyone does a little bit something different, whether it's D1, D2, D3, the structure is different, maybe how you train the guys are different based on the athlete that comes in. Can you give us a little bit of a debrief on what does a Division II athlete look like? How do you train a Division II athlete? And then how does that differ from the other levels?
Yeah. Gosh, that's a good question. How do I train them? Start with the basics, and that's what I do with everybody. I've gotten to a point where the way I program is, the kids that have been with me for a while or been with the program for a while, I might take them in a slightly different direction or give them a little bit more or a little bit less, depending on what they need. If I feel comfortable with their technique and all of the lifts, they might get a little bit more. But it's gotten to the point where we're writing a couple different programs for each team now. And some teams it's not that way because they just don't take it as seriously. It's every year that we're coming back after being gone for 12 weeks in the summertime, and we're starting at ground zero again, because it's something that they don't see a benefit in, or something that they don't want to take the time to really get better at. So, but like my better teams will give the upperclassmen a different program, challenge them a little bit more. But like the freshmen will come in and we'll start with, okay, can you hinge at the hip? Can you maintain a neutral spine? Are you technically proficient in the squat? Just things of that nature. And we start with super simple sets and reps. And as the year goes on, we progress them to, maybe testing in certain exercises so that we have a better idea of where they are and we can progress them a little bit further when we get into the winter time and the spring. So like I said before, with the high school, it was great because it taught me so much about where each athlete comes from, or the different levels of athletes. And we have that here at Division II. We have kids that are walk-ons that might not make it the full year because they realize they can't compete at this level. So we have to be able to train them. But then we just had a kid on the track team win the bronze medal in the 400 hurdles at the World Championships in track and field. So like, he's just at a different level. You know what I mean?
Isn't that wild?
It's completely wild. Yeah.
And we've had the same thing. Like when I was playing at Division III, like we had a kid who was a Division I transfer. And it's like, sometimes you get these situations where they either want to be close to home, it's grade related. It's maybe just ends up being the right spot for them. I mean, there's so many factors that ends up coming into why athletes essentially make their decisions, but it's always a tough decision to make, where they're going to go, when they're going to go, how long they're going to be there. And I mean, now with NIL deals and all the crazy stuff, I don't know how that's trickled down to D2 or D3 at all, but it almost seems like if an athlete's unhappy, he's just going to go to the next college because he's going to get some kind of better offer or package or outlook than he might get at this other school. And it's like, oh, won a ring or won this, and I'm going to go to the next school now, see what they can give.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Some challenges that we have, though, are probably challenges that most small schools have. Just, staffing is difficult. I do have a full-time assistant, and we have 2 varsity weight rooms. So, I work with, I have football, track and field, soccer, lacrosse, and tennis, and men's basketball. And then my assistant has baseball, softball, wrestling, swimming, esports, and I think that's it. But it's tough, and it makes us adjust, our programming for certain teams just based on the number of kids you have in the weight room, the number of eyes you have available. So that plays a part in it too.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, a lot of times now you see the bigger levels, like you could be a football guy, you could be a basketball guy, a baseball guy. A lot of those other levels, you're wearing a lot of hats, working with a lot of teams. So how do you, being that you're probably not going to be able to get 3 or 4 more assistants in the future, like how do you manage that, and how do you still keep things at a high standard and a high level amongst all those teams, so that way you're not having any significant drop off from team to team that you're working with?
Gosh, that's a good one. Some teams, like I said, they I don't want to say they buy in, but they take it a little more seriously than others. We might get some teams that back off quite a bit when they're in season. So they might not be around as much, and then they'll really ramp it up in the off season. So it kind of offsets just in terms of numbers and sessions and all that. So you got to be a chameleon. I go from having football in the weight room and, the energy is high, the intensity is high. Guys are squatting, cleaning, benching, trying to throw around as much weight as possible. And then the next thing I know, 5 minutes later, tennis is walking in the door. And if I acted the same way that I acted with football, like none of those kids would stick around. so yeah, you gotta learn to, I don't know. It's just, you gotta learn to coach the individual, you gotta learn to coach the person. So it's not necessarily what you're doing in terms of the lift as much as it is the environment that you're creating. So I don't know. I think to maintain a high standard, you just got to have high standards yourself, and not give. You know what I mean? Like you set that bar high, and you keep it there. And you try to, I don't want to say rid the room of anybody that's trying to bring that standard down, but you hold everybody accountable. And I'm very fortunate to be where I am because Ashland is so competitive at the Division II level, and with pretty much all the sports here, so it's our standard in the weight room, but it's also the coach's standard too. So everybody's on the same page, and that's how I think it's how you run a successful program.
Yeah, you can't give more benefits to somebody else over another person. It's like you can't be a cookie cutter coach either.
Yep.
That's why you really got to get to know the athletes, to know how you're going to coach them, to know how to cue them, to know how they're going to respond. Or
exactly.
I mean, I said here multiple times in some of my podcasts. I think body language is a huge, or nonverbal communication is huge. I mean, as soon as girls walk through the room, I mean, you're probably pretty much going to know like what you're going to get from the jump or the start that day.
Yep.
How you're going to be able to talk to them, how you're going to be able to push them. I mean, there's just so many things that could come into play from day to day on what you're going to get out of in the weight room. But
yeah,
I totally agree. I mean, if you can have that communication and connection with the coaches and that's strong, and you guys are both on the same page, that allows you to, one, they have your back, and then two, know that whatever you're going to do in the weight room is going to be supported from those individuals.
Sure.
Sometimes we don't always have that, and it can be a challenge sometimes because you feel like you're a one-man band speaking the same message over and over and nobody's helping you. But when you do have those situations, and a lot of your athletes in sports are successful, even if it's a couple of your sports in some schools, eventually it's going to catch on in other sports, because if you're a real competitive athlete or you're a coach that's competitive, you don't want to stay at that bottom level for very long.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just, it trickles down.
Mm-hmm. So I want to go back to, a person that you talked about at the very beginning of the podcast, Judd Logan. And if people don't know, he passed away recently. He was an Olympian. He was a staple at Ashland. I'm sure you're going to go into a lot more detail of kind of who he was and what he brought to the table, and, the wisdom that he provided to you that I'm sure you're still providing to your own athletes, and, probably some little nuggets that you can provide to the audience. But could you just kind of speak on who Judd Logan was as a person, how he's impacted and influenced you, and maybe how he's influenced just that area and that university as a whole?
Yeah. Oh gosh. You knew the second that you talked to Judd, if you were meeting him for the first time, that he was 100% genuine and elite. You just got that feeling from him. Like I said, if you met him, you became part of I don't know, he got your full attention, or you got his full attention. And I think when it's somebody with the presence that he had, the accolades that he had, being a 4-time Olympian, being the head coach of a team that won 3 national championships, to have his attention was always really special. I tell the story so much. So we had a number of post-collegiates training here under Judd my freshman year. A.G. Kruger, who took over as the head track coach here at the university a couple months ago, was one of Judd's athletes, 3-time Olympian himself, but he was here training. You had Kibwe Johnson, who's a 2-time Olympian, Derek Woodsky, Joe Woodsky, Crystal Smith Johnson, just so many people in this area, so many just high level athletes. And so we go to our first indoor track meet at Findlay, and I was throwing the weight, and I think I threw 38 or 39 feet, just terrible. But Judd was so excited for me. Like I remember, I still have a DVD of it somewhere. So it was my first throw. Technique was okay. I saved the throw, got a mark, and he was so excited for me. And you can hear it, you can hear it in his voice. It's just genuine. He's genuinely proud. And in that same meet, Kibwe Johnson threw over 80 feet. So he doubled my throw. And as excited as he was for Kibwe was as excited as he was for me. And to feel that and be part of something like that was it was so special.
He's not picking or choosing, regardless of what you threw. Like the fact that you were in that moment in the ring, you threw it, you got to that point. He's excited for you either way, and he's going to still coach you up because he still wants everyone to get better. But he's not favoring one person over another, which at times, when you get in those positions can be challenging when you have a lot of those high level athletes around you. He was at Pittsburgh State several times. We had lots of indoor meets, him and our throws coach at the time, Chad, pretty much every time we were there. And again, I saw that similar passion that he had. I saw, him always excited with the athletes, and you could tell he had a very high level of respect. I mean, coming over right away, what do I got to change for the next throw? He was pretty simple, straightforward to the point, wasn't going to, give them too much information to think about to kind of muck up their mind going into it. And, they dominated a lot of the time in several different areas, especially in the throws.
Yep. And he's just one of those people that had such a high standard. So, you had to raise your standards to meet his, and like we talked about, it's just something that he never wavered from. I go back to doing what I'm doing because of him. So I came to Ashland and I started as a middle education major, switched to business management, and I hated it. And so him and I were just having a conversation the one day. There's another guy that was post-collegiate who came to train, John Newell, who I think he just got the head throws job at Arkansas. He was at Tennessee for a while, and good guy, came from Georgia, was doing some personal training. And so Judd and I were talking about that, his philosophy in terms of training. And so he looked at me and he goes, "Is that something you think you would want to do?" And I never really thought about it before. And so that's when I went and I met with the department, or the head of the exercise science department here at the university, and enrolled in exercise science, and like the rest is history, so to speak. It's he was a light giver, and that was his thing, like being a light giver for so many people, illuminating the path for so many people. And I can't tell you, just his coaching tree is so big. And if you want to get to know him and who he was and how he affected people, then you get to know those coaches, and because he instilled in us just values and just, I don't know, it's hard to describe, it's more of a feeling, I guess, but he instilled that into all of us, I think. And it's how a lot of us have become successful and do what we do.
He made a lot of investments. He took time. Wasn't trying to rush through conversations. He's going to give you, several minutes to have a conversation with them. And again, positive, always brought energy, like just, basic level things. But a lot of times in our side, we're just in a rush trying to go to the next thing. And, that time that you take with staff, or that you take with athletes or other professionals on the field, like, people are going to notice that stuff right away. Exactly. And I even have a story myself, like after you saying that reminds me, like, so my grandfather passed away when I was 2, but one of the stories that my mother had told me was when they had his funeral, he goes, we had a line, it was, the whole place was packed. We had a line out the door. We had a line to, where the parking lot was. And they go, we didn't even know who 80% of these people were. We had zero clue who they were, why they were there, what their relationships were. And it's like that very situation, which I'm sure definitely happened, when they were obviously doing stuff with him. But it's just like, now you're getting the real story on all those other things that he was doing for and with, and conversations that he had with people that you would have never known meant that much to them, or that he even took the time to do, just because they're little side things here and there, and they all accumulate eventually.
Yep. Yeah, that's it. And there's so much more that I could say about him and the positive impact that he had on me, and I still use, his training philosophies, and he's somebody that was so passionate about strength and conditioning. He went and trained with Charles Poliquin for a number of years. He made trips to Westside to learn from Louis Simmons. He was always trying to learn more, and he pushed that on us too. He would always say that, if you stop learning, you're dead in the water. And 90% of what he was going to do was always set in stone. This is what he would say, 90% of what he was going to do was always set in stone. They're going to bench, clean, squat, do different variations of certain exercises, but he would spend 90% of his time trying to find that last 10%. And he searched everywhere for it. So that was always fun. You know, it was always just a fun aspect of the program, is we always knew we weren't going to be doing the same thing. We were being, you know, trying to find one way to make ourselves throw an inch further. You know what I mean? So it's yeah, gosh, I could go on.
And it's like Dave Tate always says, you're living, you're learning, and you're passing on the information, because you know, you can't take it to the grave.
Yeah.
There's nothing really extremely sexy or fancy that anyone's really doing that's really different from you, me, or whoever it is.
Right.
It's the execution, it's the person, it's how they say it, how they put it into fruition, essentially.
Yep. And Judd always said, he said a bad coach believed in is better than a good coach not believed in by their team. You know, you could have all the science in the world and, you know, all the theories, the practices, you go learn from this person, that person. But if you don't have your team, you don't have the respect from your team, then it's going to fall on deaf ears, you know. So you could be on the complete opposite end of that spectrum and have no idea what you're talking about or doing. But if the team believes in you, then that team is going to be head and shoulders above everybody else.
That's the commonality you see amongst a lot of the legends or the Hall of Famers.
Yep.
So we got a couple more minutes left. Last thing I want to ask you, and again, if people want to see a part 2 of this, y'all let me know. You know, shout out, give me a review, send me a comment. Again, a lot of these speakers we have on, I know I don't have a ton of time with them, unfortunately, because of Zoom. But yeah, if you guys want these people on again, just definitely let me know. We could do a part 2 again. I'm sure there's tons of stuff we can continue to have a conversation about and talk about organically. But what I want to finish up with is the kind of question I'm ending everybody with is, what's maybe 2 or 3 people right now in the field, that could be strength conditioning or it could be something else, that you feel would be like go-to individuals that you would tell somebody to like go talk to like right now? Like it could be through social media, Instagram, call them up, have a conversation. Like who are those 2 or 3 people to you?
Yeah. Number one,
there's too many. I know it's hard.
Number one would be Derek Woodsky. He just has such a neat perspective and is so unbelievably knowledgeable in everything related to sports performance, you know, from training in the weight room to nutrition to supplementation, to just living life. Extremely influential in me and who I am. He again trained under Judd, but he's really taken it and made a name for himself. He's spoken at Sorenex's Summer Strong before.
Yep. I got to watch him a couple years ago.
Yep. And he came, so we've had a clinic here for a couple years at Ashland, and he came to our last one and did 2 presentations that were phenomenal. So he would be number one. I think Instagram is probably the best way to follow him or to get in touch with him. The other one for me right now would be Evan Marcus at the Cleveland Browns. He's an assistant there. Those 2 guys have given me a lot of confidence these last couple of years. And so like I might shoot him a text and ask him, you know, about this idea or that idea. You know, Evan Marcus has been huge for me just in terms of training for football of, okay, you know, conditioning, strength, what do I need to focus on? And he's a great sounding board for strength coaches everywhere. So I'd probably email for him. I don't know, Instagram maybe, but those 2 guys have been huge for me.
Awesome. Malcolm, really appreciate having you on. Everybody, anyone that wants to contact Malcolm, we're going to put his bio and his contact information in there. Anyone who needs to contact me, all my stuff's going to be in there as well. Appreciate having you on. Maybe we'll have a part 2 to discuss some more stuff.
Sure. Yeah.
But have an awesome day, and thanks for jumping on with us. It was a lot of great nuggets in there.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an honor.